So I actually started thinking about it in the spring, and I reached out to some fellow researchers at the Stockholm School of Economics, a Center of AI, Future and Innovation at Work. Because there are certain things happening in society that we're all supposed to take notice of, and that's what I want to bring to this presentation today. And I want you to keep in mind when you go through these kind of like everyday queries that you have about your CX challenges, UX challenges, how you adopt data, how you approach it in your companies, because it does make a huge difference and it can make an impact in people's lives. So the query that I took to the Stockholm School of Economics was this one. Is the notion of CX changing? And it's a broad question, right? What is CX? Well, if you read some forums and you go on LinkedIn, for instance, there's people that still believe that CX is customer service, essentially. And we all know that it's not, right? It's much broader than that. But to kind of start to answer this query and get our minds around what it could bring for the future when we're talking about CX, I'm actually going to bring it back a little further than Pierre, not to 2012, but to these graphs right here. And what does history teach us about rapid tech development and what it has done in the past for us? Well, if you look at the, for instance, agricultural sector, you can see the number of people from 1850 up until 2019 that has been employed in this sector. And in the lower left graph, it's hard to see from the back, but you see the basically productivity level in this sector and how it has evolved. And this is 2019, and it goes back to 1850. And then you see between the services sector that I guess we are all employed in today within this room, right? And the agricultural sector as well, and how it's progressed during time to have number of people employed in it. And what has made these shifts over time? Of course, like industrial revolution, we're talking about electricity coming into play and these major innovations, right? And we are right now, of course, at one of those breaking points again, when AI is going into the next level, going into what we're seeing right now with LLMs and Gen AI and so on. What is happening? We're outsmarted in a number of areas, or at least 98.9 or something like that % of us. Pierre might still be that 1% or something that or used that is coming on stage later. I certainly am not. But what we have to think of, if we're looking back to the slide that was previous, is how do we make this work with us, and what does it do for our future work, our roles today, and everything that we do on a daily basis, essentially, to keep the productivity level and keep at it at a speed of rate so the productivity can continue to increase by tenfold. So image recognition, reading comprehension, language understanding, all of this, right? And it has a bearing on CX because this is different than the traditional data that we've always used. So Content Square, again, we're coming back to it later as well, like it's of course session-based, but what's coming next? How can we adopt that? And how are we maybe forced to adopt it with regulation coming into play as well? That is something that is needed to be addressed. So we're going to have a little poll. So I'm the one with the poll, of course. So you have to engage. And please put up your cell phones. Or that 1% that uses desktop still may use that as well. That's if it works. And the question we're going to address is this one. How long before AI, including LLMs, has a disruption factor on the white-collar employment industry? So I'll give you a little bit of time to address it. Has everyone understood the question? Basically, in simpler terms, how long before my work, you can think, will change immensely due to the rapid technology development? Let's see. Do I need to click now? I'm sorry if that's the case. Yes, I'm hearing. Wrong click. No click. Okay, so we're still waiting for the... Okay. Check. 2.5 years. Well, not bad. Not bad. 5.5 years. Still some movement there. But this is what we're seeing. I wish I would have a time to have a second question, what you would do in 2.5 years, but we don't have time for that one, right? Now, so this is a fact, and this is a slide that you've probably seen in multiple presentations if you've been out to different venues and retail arenas, right? So AI may not replace you, but someone definitely that uses AI will. And the Center for Research on AI, they have said that basically all white-collar industries within at least 2.5 to 5.5 years will have like an immense impact. And we're already seeing the examples today, right? I don't know if Klarna is in the room. They've starting working on those customer service cases, right? Removing them, making it more automated. And there are benefits to that, of course. But one can ask oneself the question if, wow, good gracious, do I like this? Or am I not so happy about it? It all depends on what you're seeing as a challenge or how you're willing to use AI in your daily lives. Spotify is definitely here. I can bring up Hughes to talk about this. It was funny when we met earlier this morning. We had this one about multimodality. But if you can use all of these senses to come into play, what you can do in terms of increasing your productivity is quite astonishing, right? You can go time to market to produce a song has become shorter than ever. Anyone can be the next Max Martin, essentially. There are, on the other hand, though, copyright issues with this. But there are also ways of using the technology to maybe enhance your knowledge about that music or that play or whatever it is by using the data correctly. So that's an opportunity. If we take it back to, of course, the pharmacy industry where I'm coming from, well, we wouldn't probably be sitting here. And the scary part is that not everyone would actually be sitting in this room if it hadn't been for AI. COVID and the cure of COVID was an immense effect or a result of having this sort of technology with breakthrough research and the speed of which we could produce vaccines. There are other super interesting studies that the World Health Organization, for instance, are doing right now in terms of following movements of certain animals, and mosquitoes, for instance, is a good example, that are kind of like inhabiting different areas of this world. And there's, for instance, a tiger mosquito now that has presence since around a year back in northern Denmark, which is not very far from Sweden. And that one actually carries dengue and stuff like that. So you ask yourself from a CX perspective, again, what is he talking about? What does it has to do with anything? Well, we can take this data and bridge, for instance, our online presence, our information regarding vaccinations for these upcoming diseases that are coming. And we can take other sorts of data when it comes to multimodality to maybe work on the Web Accessibility Act that is coming into play in just basically less than a year's time. And how can we bridge that sort of data with our own internal user data, the session-based behavior and other sorts of AI, to meet that kind of user expectation, to advance, to get the first mover advantage when it comes to using technology to actually reap the benefits out of it, to get the profits out of it that we all want, right? If we're just building on the use cases that is out there, and I'm not saying that, it was easy for Klarna to adopt this kind of like position in terms of cutting 700 people and moving into automation when it comes to customer service. But that's a proven use case now. I think everyone should look inwards in terms of how we can use the data that we possess in our current company or in our industry at least to make the next move. That is something that I'm always challenging you to do. So it has high potential. This is a tricky part, but I actually went a little further than SSE. So I had a quite interesting meeting with the head of communications at Google DeepMind. How many knows what this is? Oh, there is a person. Amazing. Well, then you can probably explain this better than me. But this is a tokamak. Basically, it's a nuclear reactor for fusion technology, right? And it uses Gen AI to control the heat. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible, because the fusion technology, when they hit those cores together and they work on this technology, is so intense that it's 4 times the heat of the core of the sun. So it's pretty crazy. And what does this do, you can ask? Well, if they get it right, basically, these things, if you apply them in a tenfold, will produce enough energy for the world population to go around. And we can focus maybe, I don't know, hundreds of billions or US dollars less on energy consumption, move it into another area, and maybe prevent like diseases or increase food productivity, so we can, cure starvation, lessen starvation. So this is super cool things when you move beyond and see what AI can do, right? So let's go for that. But is everything about it good then? Is everything fine, or should I watch out? Who remembers Cambridge Analytica? Yeah, now we're moving into recent times. This is basically 2016, right? And it had at least a profound effect on the US election. I'll recap it shortly for you who don't remember it. But basically, this was the election between Hillary and Donald Trump, where a super PAC joined forces basically with this behavioral analysis company called Cambridge Analytica. And they set out and built a query on Facebook asking people to fill out a simple form. But they collected the data, they matched it with the users, and they matched it with the friends of those users. And then suddenly you had 50 million data points that they can assess on certain people and individual in those swing states. I'm not going to go into how much money from this super PAC then put into place. But around basically $2,500 they put into ads on single individuals in those states. So if you have worked with display, for instance, in marketing, you can see how many display ads that would be on a certain day and how influential that could be on such an important topic. And again, this was 2016. At least what we know today with LLMs and Gen AI wasn't even present. So you can ask yourself this question then. Should we make data great again? And one of those interesting queries that is being researched right now is this one. So of course, there's many opportunities with LLMs and with the big data and all of that, right? And you can use it in the right way to combat misinformation. But we can also ask ourselves, if we feed this constantly, these engines, with misinformation, and then the LLMs are using that to create the answers that we build our analysis on, that we take decisions on, what will that leave us, essentially, right? And that's where I'm bringing it back to the notion of CX that we all have to be cautious about. There are, however, fantastic opportunities with this as well, and I think, Pierre revealed some amazing stuff that Content Square has going on, bridging this first addition of LLMs and AI into the normal session-based behavior and stuff like that. But there are actually proven results and scientific research as well on using, for instance, synthetic data generation. And what that means is that, this is the process of creating artificial data to simulate real-life experiences, essentially. So this one is a study between Google and Stanford, and you can read it. You can actually download this yourself on GitHub and try it. And they have put 25 agents in a real-life digital experience. So it's kind of like a digital Truman Show for those that remember that one. If you don't, you're probably born later than the 2000s. But basically, these 25 agents, they are powered by all one individual LLM. And they react, they build relationships, they discuss things on a daily basis. So you can log into your computer and see what they've done from one day to another. And then you can put in your own kind of prompts to that. So say that, well, I kind of want these 25 agents to be CX analysts today and see what they do. And then they can go to the library, they can go to, well, an artificial office, for instance, and see what they would do. And then you can ask them questions as well that you have in mind, that you have a challenge about. It can be anything. It can be sustainability, right? Or if you're in the textile industry, for instance, how to cut water shortage or stuff like that in production. So we're here today, but with the development, and you've seen again what it can do for your industries in 2.5 years' time, I bet you there will be new things that Pierre will be here presenting. I probably won't be back because I probably will be out of work looking for something else, maybe gone into the agricultural sector or so, who knows. But there will be predictive, maybe instant validation, because what if you use the synthetic user data generation within a tool like Content Square? Basically, would you even need to run a test? Could you simulate in a safe environment? So you don't have to have the disadvantage of running it in production stage, seeing that, well, it does come down 2.5% in conversion, or does produce maybe 50% less of a revenue. Maybe. That could be one thing. Another one could be, and I think this one is very, very relevant, and that's something that is working hard within in our sort of line of industry, where it's also being more and more regulated, and that is looking into the offline to online presence. There are still a lot of data gaps, right? So we can bridge the offline data from, again, customer service, or we have 400 stores across Sweden. So the signals that they produce, can we match them somehow with the data that sits, for instance, within Content Square? Does the behavior of the customers in-store match the online behavior and stuff like that? And what we can then build from that is really, really cool new features and functionalities as well. Hopefully, that will gain us the right results and build the 10x that we want. So maybe this shows my super bad UX skills. But could there be features like this in the future when you log into the platform? So with that, I say thank you, good luck, and start thinking about these topics in a broader sense. What we can produce today is maybe not 1/100th of what we can produce tomorrow, and bring that back to your teams. You're all one of the smartest ones in the rooms, and I'm sure that Sweden will have a couple of more icons on that screen as well that we saw up there in the future. And if you're joining us digitally, wherever you sit, please bring this back as well. And this presentation, of course, is shared afterwards. So good luck again, and trying to decide your own CX decisions. Thank you.